Welcome to Swift Recaps. The animation opens with a lion by the name of Samson reads tales to his young son Ryan, of his exploits in the African wilderness. Ryan is supposed to be inspired by these tales to develop the roaring ability of his father, but all the cub manages to utter is a shriek. Samson and Ryan are residents of the New York Zoo, where people frequently go to see them. Samson disagrees with Ryan's plan to go into the wild to learn how to roar like his father after Ryan confides in him that he is depressed over his failure to roar. Later, a squirrel called Benny, one of Samson's friends, joins them, and Ryan departs from both of them as he makes his way away. Ryan is asked to attend and watch him play on this particular night because it is championship night and all the animals are free to wander after the zoo closes. Instead, the cub decides to spend the night playing with his pals. Samson and his squad, which includes Larry the anaconda, Nigel koalas, Benny and Bridget the giraffes, whom Benny has a crush on, compete in a turtle curling competition at the games. The animals tease Nigel about the fact that the zoo has a stuffed animal that precisely resembles him. Samson and his companions fall to the penguins in the final stages of the game. The joy is short-lived because Ryan and his companions unintentionally start a stampede that travels to the game and puts the animals in danger. After the panic has subsided, Samson reprimands his for endangering the animals. Both of them speak hurtful words to one another. Ryan departs before Samson has a chance to explain. Ryan sneaks a green container thought to be headed into the wild and lies down as he somberly strolls around the zoo. Samson, on the other hand, goes to his tree to apologize but has no clue what his son is about to do. He hesitantly approaches the tree and climbs it only to discover Ryan is not there. At the same time, Ryan finds himself unexpectedly trapped inside the container. As he calls for assistance and attempts to flee, Ryan starts to regret his choice. Samson hears his son's words and begins running towards him, but is late as the container has already been loaded onto a freight truck, driving Ryan away. On Samson's instructions, Benny goes to the pigeons and tells them to follow the truck, but Amir, one of the pigeons, already knows where the vehicle is going. He provides them with driving instructions before informing them that Ryan will be driven to a dock from which he will be transported elsewhere. Samson's companions get ready to go with him to rescue Ryan, but he declines and says he will go it alone. Later, Samson conceals in a garbage bag and boards a disposal truck to be taken out of the zoo. Benny follows him but is unintentionally thrown overboard when the other animals emerge from hiding, which Samson had requested them to do. Benny is subsequently found to be missing, but they press on because they have to get to their destination quickly. The animals are awed by the majesty of the city and their pictures as the garbage truck passes through Times Square. The truck eventually pauses, and the group escapes being crushed as they enter the streets to determine their next course of action. Benny is not with them, after all. The party comes across a pack of rabid dogs who chase them to a corner as they are walking through the streets. And instead of holding his ground as his companions would have expected, Samson flees through the sewer. When they inquire, he responds that he is focused on locating his son and does not have time to fight dogs. They encounter two alligator brothers inside the sewers and ask them for instructions. To keep them safe from any potential dangers in the drains, the street-smart reptiles then led the way. The animals eventually arrive at the harbor the following morning, but Ryan has already boarded a ship and departed. Samson, who is devastated, attempts to jump after the boat but is restrained by his friends who are trying to console him. The creatures are currently unsure of what to do. When the boat they are on abruptly begins to move, Samson roars to scare the driver away, leaving them alone with the boat, which they battle to control. The anaconda Larry makes every effort to keep them from colliding with the spacecraft, and eventually he and Samson figure it out. They are currently unable to see the ship they are supposed to pursue, and they are unsure of their intended route. They are thinking when Benny appears above. He had a group of Canada geese with him as he pursued them. Benny meets up with his companions once they arrive at the boat, and the geese fly off to lead. When they turn toward Ryan's ship, they followed them. For several days and through several storms, Samson and his men follow the ship as it travels through the Atlantic Ocean until it arrives in the African bush. Samson and his pals can see the forest from here. Animals are put into several containers, but it is subsequently discovered that they have been saved because an upcoming eruption of a neighboring volcano. When Ryan's container is opened, he leaps out and starts to flee the ship into the forest. As he dashes into the forest, Samson spots him and starts pursuing him but fails to catch him. Nigel, Larry, Benny, and Bridget shortly cross paths. Being in the jungle, Samson is terrified that he has misplaced his son once more. Benny, on the other hand, soothes him and advises him to use his animal sense to search for Ryan, which he does. Instead of leading them to Ryan, Samson's nose leads them to a Hyrax-releasing waste. Samson's friends ask him if he has ever been in the wild like he claims in his tales after he fails to consume this Hyrax. He regretfully responds to their inquiries and explains. He tells them that he is not from the wilderness and tells them to go back to the boat because Contrary to what they believe, he cannot defend them in the jungle. While the remainder of the group makes their way back to the ship, he walks off by himself to look for his son, upset that he was never honest with them. While Samson continues his search across the jungle, they change their thoughts along the way and decide to search for Ryan on their own. Nigel is kidnapped as the hunt is being conducted by a group of wildebeests, who subsequently eject Bridget and Larry. These animals lead Nigel into a mountain whose volcano is about to explode, where he encounters the other wildebeests in large herds. He is brought before Khazar, the boss, and all of a sudden, they all kowtow to him, confusing him. Samson is still outside looking for. As Ryan starts out, he observes various plants. He interprets the color changing of the rocks as the result of his intuition, so he continues on the path. Ryan, on the other hand, runs to a tree branch to conceal because the noises he hears in the jungle frighten him. Two vultures fly off after spotting him to alert Khazar, the wildebeest's leader, to his location in the jungle. Khazar tells Nigel while they are on the hillside that lions have long preyed on wildebeests. He declares Nigel to be the wildebeest's rescuer, based on an event he went through as a small child. A toy koala that fell from a plane scared the lions away, sparing Khazar from being eaten by them. As a result of this encounter, Khazar came to think that the koala would assist him and his species in bringing about a change in the food chain that would enable prey to turn into predators and vice versa. To accomplish that, he believes the wildebeests have to eat a lion, and while he says this, the vultures that saw Ryan on the tree arrived to inform him about the news. When Nigel discloses that there are actually two lions, Khazar is delighted and instructs that Samson and Ryan be brought up to the mountain. Nigel then reacts with awe and a cheeky laugh as the wildebeests crown him as their monarch. The branch breaks as the vulture group returns to the tree where Ryan is hiding to attack him. His hand got caught underneath. He attempts his best to repel the vultures as they come at him one by one while roaring, but all that comes out is a scream. Samson, who can hear his son's screams from a distance, rushes to save him while frightening the vultures. The two reunite after he removes the branch from Ryan's paw, but the wildebeests quickly separate them. Ryan is surprised when Samson flees the herd because he had assumed his father would beat them off as he always described. Samson tells his son the reality about his past as they withdraw to a tree. He was born in a circus, resided there with his father, and, like Ryan, was incapable of roaring, bringing shame upon him. Samson's father was an authoritarian and excessively rigid man, and refused to acknowledge him as a son because he was not an untamed animal's child. Samson had no promise in his eyes, so he was sent to the menagerie, where he had previously lived, lied about his background to escape embarrassment. Ryan is frustrated and irate that all of his father's tales were enjoyable. All lies. They are soon discovered by the wildebeests, who use their horns to push the tree, causing Ryan to fall while Samson holds on. The tree was successfully thrown over the cliff by the herd of animals, and Samson descends along with it to the ground before collapsing unconscious as Ryan screams and is carried to the mountain. On the mountain, he encounters Larry and Bridget, who he tells about his father's death. Benny, on the other hand, eventually wakes up and stumbles upon a group of female dung beetles, which he subsequently departs from. He then discovers Samson's lifeless corpse and starts to weep, believing that Samson has passed away. Benny gives the lion the confidence to be himself, even though he is not native to the wild, as the lion eventually awakens and is encouraged to get his son back by Benny. They start navigating the wilderness and eventually reach the peak. They later learn that Samson was being guided to the volcano by two chameleons under the guise of his instincts so he could assist them in defeating Khazar's troops. Bridget, Ryan, and Larry are brought inside the mountain to meet the ruler of the wildebeests, who they later learn is named Nigel. Khazar then declares that Ryan and his friends would be sacrificed and used for a feast to mark their ascension on the food chain. However, Nigel makes every effort to delay the sacrifice in order to spare his pals. Samson sneaks into the volcano using the chameleon's camouflage skills, but his cover is blown off by the extreme heat of the mountain. Despite this, Nigel continues to try to aid Samson in escaping, but Khazar commands his army to assault. Ryan rushes to meet Khazar and attempts to attack him after spotting Samson in danger. As the other wildebeests observe, Samson charges forward to defend his son, and a fight breaks out between them. Khazar becomes enraged when Samson removes one of his horns during the battle, so he grabs the lion by the other horn and tosses him across the volcano. However, Samson grabs hold of a rock to prevent himself from falling into the lava, and his companions decide to step in and break up the fight. By using Larry as a catapult to launch a rock at Khazar, they buy Samson enough time to flee the lava. Ryan uses Larry to shoot himself at Khazar as he pounces on him, eventually letting out a roar, but Khazar still gets to him and keeps hitting him. However, Khazar continues to fight him off and throws him across the boulder as he advances on him in an attempt to eat him. Samson easily overcomes Khazar while he is preoccupied, throws him forcefully against the wall, and then proceeds to meet his son. Ryan congratulates Samson on having his father as he lays weakened on the ground. After that, Khazar rises up off the ground and commands the other wildebeests to kill Samson and Ryan, but they refuse. They advance but decline to assist Khazar any further, having grown tired of his predatory fantasies. Then Samson finds the strength to bellow loudly, sufficient to stop a rampaging Khazar. He repeats this twice, and the intensity of his roar causes the boulders to begin to fall. As a result, Khazar is left to perish in the erupting volcano while Samson, Ryan, the group, and the wildebeests escape. They take turns dancing as they flee on the boat and return to their New York home at the zoo. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you can watch more videos like this. Thanks for watching.